And welcome to Crusher Convo, where we're crushing the conversation one episode at a time. Today, I have a returning to the guest seat to talk more Trek as he goes through his own Trek journey. I have Tim from FSF Popcast. Hello, Tim.
Hello, hello, hello.
You dig the music, don't you? I see you.
I was enjoying the vibe of the music. You know, it's not that I haven't heard your theme song before, but it's been a while since I've actually sat through the whole thing and listened to it. And as I'm sitting there, I'm like, it's kind of got a little bouncy vibe. Makes you kind of want to wiggle your tush a little bit, you know?
A little bit. You will. I think that's what you were doing.
Well, definitely a little booty wiggle.
Actually, the song is extended. Before it was just the 30 seconds, and now I've actually done the 45 seconds worth or something like that, or a whole minute. So yeah, you're getting more vibes there.
I like it.
So before we get started, I got a question for you, Tim.
Oh boy.
I know. I hope you're ready. It's not a dinosaur question because that's cooler,
okay,
but you already stole that one. So typically I always ask, what is your Trek and why? But as you're still kind of going through Trek right now as we speak, what is it that is interesting to you about Star Trek?
Well, actually, I'll answer both because I've watched a little bit of each of the Treks, because of having different guests on from different incantations of the show, watching their work, episodes that are specific to them, and getting an understanding of who and what their guest was, even if it's not a series that I've gotten fully into yet. Mm-hmm. So first off, my Trek so far is Strange New Worlds. And I know that's the most recent one and it's the newest one, but it's also now, the Prodigy it was what kind of was, and I've said this before, it was my gateway. It's what got me in.
You're welcome.
Somebody really cool suggested it to me. And so I listened to her, and it's her, by the way.
Sounds like an awesome person. I'm just gonna say.
Exactly. Somebody so awesome. The show should be followed by everybody who loves Trek. And I liked that, and it helped me understand Trek because I didn't understand it before that, and I think that's why I didn't like Trek, is that it seemed very foreign to me, and it was also a whole lot of not laser swords and pew pews and space wizards and all that kind of stuff that I was used to from another universe. So anyway, but Star Trek Strange New Worlds is kind of where I felt like, because I had watched the original series, I'd gotten into Next Gen, and then Strange New Worlds came out, and I was like, well, you know what? I kind of really dig this, and I find myself enjoying the characters. I'm still not forgiving them for killing off Hemmer. That's still a little angry about that. Not gonna lie. You're my boy, Blue.
You're not alone.
But what I like about Trek, what helps me to identify with Trek, and this is something I didn't appreciate when I was younger. Mm-hmm. Trek has a very hopeful quality, and looking positively towards the future and towards humankind and what mankind has in store for them, or could have in store for them if we don't act like a bunch of dickbags. And so frankly, if everybody's just nice and learns how to play well with one another, Trek is the eventual hope of what we could get. And even though, and I know that tonight's we're talking about one of the original series episodes, even though I didn't really care for the original series, and I still don't, it's still not my favorite. One of the things I find even with the original series is that there is no show for me like Star Trek that makes me, when I'm done watching an episode, stop before I go into the next one and reconsider what I've just watched and how it impacts the world around me, even if it was something from 60 years ago.
Mm-hmm. That's a very in-depth answer. I don't even know how to respond to that.
Yay!
But I will.
Okay, good.
No, but I think, and I'm still new. I mean, I've talked about this multiple times. It's only been 3 years that I saw Trek, and there's so much to learn from it.
Yeah.
And I just had my interview with Brian yesterday, and we did talk about just how he embodies those qualities in his daily life. And he's like, because he thinks that that's just the most important thing to do. And I agree.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you guys are gonna love the interview, by the way. It was lots of fun. But I've learned a lot of just how to handle situations, how to be kind to people, how to just, learn new things. And yeah, it's amazing of just how Trek can do that,
Oh,
so
for sure. I think it has the power. It's one of those shows and one of the series and whatever incantation it is. I think it has the power and the ability to change your perspective on life, humanity, and the way things are around you.
mhm,
If you allow yourself to stop for 3 seconds, and no matter, it doesn't matter if you're on the right side of the aisle or the left side of the aisle when it comes to politics, if you can stop for just a minute and look at the message and the humanity behind the message of the show,
mhm.
Trek, unlike Star Wars, unlike Stargate, has and I'll mention those two shows by name because they're the ones with star in the title. But unlike those other shows, Star Trek,
Battlestar.
Battlestar,
I mean,
but it didn't start with Star. So,
it's still in
um,
the name.
well, fine. But it doesn't. Those other shows don't have that same feeling in it where you watch it and it makes. I've never and I've said this in other interviews. I've never gotten done with an episode of Star Wars up until recently, through Andor, where I honestly stopped and went, "What did I just watch? How is that
Right.
affecting me?" And if you allow that to change your perspective, you can. It's one of the few shows out there in the sci-fi world that I think can help make you a better person.
I agree. Yeah. Gene had a vision,
Oh, for sure.
and
Yeah.
and as much as he went through his own demons at the
Hmm.
time, he was only either he was 69 or he was 70 or just about to be 70. I can't really remember when he died. And he never really got to see just how impactful, like he kind of knew a little bit, but I don't think he really got to see how impactful the franchise really got to be just
Yeah.
because he was swallowed up in all that politics of the production companies and the
Sure.
studios. And watch The Center Seat. I've already told you, it
Yeah,
will
I need to watch that.
blow your mind.
I'm excited to catch up
It
on
is
that.
so, so good. But before we start talking about our topic today, which is time travel favorites in the city on the edge of forever. So you got an original series episode, Tim. Congratulations.
Woohoo!
But I'm really excited because I get to announce that, boom, I have a sponsor here, Cherry Tree Incorporated. If you go to their website at mycherrytree.com, they have awesome computers. They have amazing computer accessories. You could also get your own Borg kitty, just like my Obi Borg that I have behind me. Go to their website and use the code Crusher Convo 6 to get 6% off of your order. And please follow them on the socials at Cherry Tree Incorporated. Very
Nice.
exciting. They did this lovely little rendition of Obi. They asked for a couple of pictures and got his eye color right and just how his hair was and stuff. And he's not getting an Enterprise off the Borg cube. And if anyone wants to know why they decided to do cats on Borgs, it's because the majority of their sales is computers, and it's literally a computer in the shape of a Borg cube.
Nice.
So that's the computer. Okay.
Dig
and just what cats love to do, they love to sit on top of the computer
and knock things off counters
and knock things off. And so people were sending in pictures of their cats on the Borg cube, and so now that's like their little mascot. So yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. I remember seeing it actually when I was in Vegas, and I had just lost all my money to all the autographs and stuff, so I couldn't afford it. Obi passed away.
Okay.
Right. Obi passed away, and I was all like, I really wish I had the black cat Borg cube. And when I finally saw that they still had it, I was like, I gotta buy it. I'm so happy that I did. So, but let's get into our episode with a clip, shall we? You ready for this?
Okay.
There's
probably not, but we're gonna do it anyway.
You got this. I have faith in you. All right, here we go. This is the clip from The City on the Edge of Forever.
What are you?
I am the guardian of forever.
Are you machine or being?
I am both, and neither. I am my own beginning, my own ending.
I see no reason for answers to be couched in riddles.
My answer is simply as your level of understanding makes possible.
I love Spock's face in that. Right? He's just like, oh, it's logical, but a little sarcastic. Okay, so when a temporarily insane Dr. McCoy accidentally changes history and destroys his time, Kirk and Spock follow him to prevent the disaster, but the price to do is high. So, like you said, you have seen the original series. You have seen this episode.
Yep. Watched it again this week just to make sure I was up to date on it.
I did not get a chance to watch it this week because I've been sick with whatever's going around. But hopefully I have it in my brain. We'll see. We'll find out. But what was the one thing that stuck out to you with this particular episode? Because this is, I believe, one of the very first time travel episodes they did, which helped with budget at the time, which was a big cost-saving thing. If anyone didn't know, it was $85,000 to do an episode of, now I'm retracting. It was either $85,000 total to do an episode, or Lucille Ball had to put the $85,000 and the other half was from the production company. Can't really remember which is which, but anyway, she paid half of it. That's all I know. Okay. In order for this to continue. So anytime they were able to do budget cuts, there it is. But what was it about this episode that kind of stuck out to you?
So there's actually a couple things, and both of them are from the episode, but neither of them are about the meat of the episode. So the first thing. So the first thing is that the time traveler dude, the Guardian, the Guardian, so that ring, it's one of those things. So we have a Facebook group of like 215,000 people for funny science fiction on Facebook, and that image of them jumping through, Kirk and Spock jumping through the Guardian. Is sent through all the time, and I could never remember where it was from. And it's one of those things, I'm watching the episode and going, I knew that was from okay, that's from this. All right, great. This is just kind of getting refamiliarized with that. So that's one of those things where a meme has been created from something from pop, from pop culture, and you don't remember where it's from, but then all of a sudden you see it. So there was that. And then also a very young Joan Collins is in this episode. Mm-hmm. And I didn't recognize, she was so young, I did not recognize her at first. I had to do a Google search to see who Edith Keeler was.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I recognized her off the bat.
Well, I did not. La-ti-da. So, but yeah, so I had to go do a Google search to kind of see who she was and everything. But I guess the thing that really stands out to me about, and this is about the meat of the episode, is the ending and the way that this whole episode wraps up. You know, one of the things we just talked about, how Star Trek does things that leave you hopeful and leave you looking forward to the future. And a lot of this episode does do that. But there's this one moment where Kirk has to make a decision that will affect all of humanity. And so he has to give up something because for this week he fell in love with another woman. And this time
Shocker.
So, yeah, shocker. Kirk fell in love with a woman. This time she wasn't green. But you know, but still he had to make a very powerful and important decision to let her die. And that's that. It was, I don't know. I was not, it'd been a while since I had seen the episode, and so I had forgotten that that's how it ended. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And so it just, you know, kind of made, like I said earlier, that, you know, Star Trek often makes me stop and think about things. And I had to stop and think about that. Like, man, and the thought process was, okay, I've never been in that position. God forbid I would never be in that position, you know, where I have to choose to allow somebody I love to die to save everyone else. You know, could I, would I, how would I handle it? And reality was that y'all are screwed. So,
well, this is Spock's, and you know, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Okay.
Right.
Edith had to die in order to not only save McCoy,
but save the entirety of future.
Yeah, of everyone else that was to be in the future. Before I continue, we actually have some comments, and we have Jason. This is, I say that every time I watch FSF. What did I watch? Haha, hi guys. And then the gentle dork, they were, okay, oh, there it is. I don't know where I'm reading this. They were morality plays set to a sci-fi background, in my opinion. Yes.
Hi, Kevin.
I think that was I think that was the reason, you know, this episode was so impactful, because it had a moral message to it.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. Jason also says, ooh, I'll check out Cherry Tree. I want a Borg kitty. They have plenty over there. You'll love it. The answer is, why not do cats on Borgs? Which that's true. Like, why not? Tim, Jessi, and Will Crusher are the best. Where's Will Crusher? Oh, I think he might have seen. I have Will in the corner. Maybe.
Yeah.
He also said that's a good episode. I like that one, which we're talking about right now. Joel, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And then Rude Tim didn't say hi to
Hi, Jason. Mwah. I didn't blow anybody else a kiss, Jason, just you.
Yeah, so you got a special one. So check out 3 Geeks, guys, over on YouTube. Anyways, so like you had said, the ending was very impactful. And of course, like Kirk does, he falls in love with another person. But Edith was different, right? She was doing amazing things with the shelters and taking care of people. She was like, she found them in her basement, and she's like, well, I'll pay you if you clean this up, you know, for whatever it was, like 15 cents a week, whatever it was supposed to be. But the thing was, it was like, even though they like snuck in and tried to steal stuff, she was still willing to help them. She was a very special person, which is why she was important, that her death was so important, that impacted so many things.
I will say that I think that Kirk's attraction to her this time, although Joan Collins was a beautiful woman, don't get me wrong, Edith Taylor was a beautiful woman, I think the attraction for him was not a physical attraction. It was, he was attracted to her hopefulness, and she was describing the future that he was already from, and all the and it's like you could tell he wanted to bring her back to that future. He wanted to bring her that, because everything that she had talked about in that episode, about what her hopes were for the future, were what the Federation was already experiencing. So she would have fit in seamlessly into that future. And I think that he was trying to find a way to bring her to that. I think that if they would have found Bones earlier in the episode and they could have all returned, I think they would have taken her with them had they, before Spock discovered what was her future was supposed to be.
Right. Which would have been a very much like the Voyage Home, because that's the fourth Star Trek movie, and
The one with the
Jillian,
whales.
the one with the whales, Jillian, she got to go with them,
Right.
because she knew about the whales, so they're like, well, we got to bring you with us because we know what to do. You're going to help bring whales back from extinction.
Right.
So if anyone has a comment about this episode, please chime in. I'm not a huge TOS fan. Okay. Everyone knows that. I don't really watch it very often.
Shocker, me
but
either.
I know but there are some good episodes, and this is kind of why I
sure.
wanted to do this one. And it was also because it kind of paved the way for a lot of future time travel episodes, which is ta-da. And guys, this is literally just a handful. If you look on Memory Alpha, there is a lot. So I could only fit so much. But so here is a list. And I know, Tim, you haven't seen a lot of these, maybe hardly any. I'm sure you saw the original series and the movie, but Future's End, great. We get Sarah Silverman in that one. Voyager. All Good Things, which is a little different in time travel, but he does jump timelines, so it kind of still fits. Trials and Tribulations, where you got to combine Deep Space Nine and TOS, and they did that beautifully. Little Green Men, absolutely hilarious. Great, but Past Tense is probably the biggest one on here, just because it kind of had the same feel of a certain person had to be there during this time of 2024, the Bell riots, and if he wasn't there, then the basically their unifying wouldn't have happened. Okay, so really great episode with Bashir and Cisco in that one, and of course Yesterday's Enterprise, that was also a time travel timeline change. But yeah, these are really good episodes. And one thing that I always loved was the fact that when something were to happen, something has to take its place. Okay. And I've seen this in so many different television shows. And I'm going to be using an example. And sorry, Tim, this is going to spoil it for you. But
okay. Don't worry, I'll forget about it by tomorrow. I'll have slept.
Okay, great. Before I continue, the Gentle Dork, you said his name, Kevin?
Kevin Tierney.
Kevin, all right. I thought it was a great time travel episode that didn't try to kill you with all of the time travel science and just got to the story. Yes.
Just did the travel, did the things.
Story. Yeah. Morality story at its best. And Joel says the Guardian comes back for the animated series most iconic episode of yesteryear. I haven't seen the animated series, but I need to. That needs to be on.
I have not gotten high enough to sit down and watch all of the animated series. So
yeah.
I think you need to be on some really good drugs to watch some of the animated series.
The colors alone are like, woo! I think I'm more scared to watch and I think it's Yesteryear. Isn't this about Spock's his teddy bear thing? What's it called? A Salot. Okay. I have a thing about animals, okay, and I'm a little scared. I'm not gonna lie. But the thing that I'm about to spoil to you, Tim, is that in All Good Things, when Picard was jumping timelines, he went to the past, he was in the present, and he also went to the future. What happened is that Picard was an ambassador, Riker was an admiral, Beverly Crusher was a captain of a medical vessel, Worf was on the council of the Klingon Empire. There was now a split, though. They were now at war with the Klingons again. Geordi, I can't remember what Geordi was doing, but I remember he was visiting Picard and he had a family. Okay. And that was kind of the biggest joke of, Geordi wasn't good with women, but he was married to, we believe, Leah Brahms. We heard Leah. They don't say Brahms, but they heard Leah, and they had 3 kids. I've
seen this one.
All good things?
I think so. I think I had, because you just mentioned with Geordi being married. I've either watched parts of it or all of it, but I can't remember. So
okay. And then, of course, Data was a professor at university, and Troy had died young. Okay, yeah. So all this, but Picard had to change to save humanity. He had to change something that he did in the future in order for it to not destroy humanity altogether. It was going backwards. A little confusing in the science, but he fixes humanity. Everything's all good. And also he was married to Beverly Crusher and they got divorced. So that was a whole side story. Well, he saves humanity. Yay. And as things progress, as we go on to now Star Trek Picard, it's Data who had died. Beverly and Picard didn't get married, but they had a son. Troy didn't die because someone had to die, and it ended up being Data instead of Troy. The Enterprise D was not a 3-nacelle ship. It had crashed not long after. Geordi got married, but not to Leah, but only had 2 daughters and never had the son. All this stuff had happened. Picard became an admiral, not an ambassador, things like that. And so because of just changing one little thing, it flipped everything off hand. It just it rippled, right? Yeah. Which, in a sense, some of it was fine. It worked out. I mean, they lost Data, but Troy lived. Yay. But it's so amazing how it's like, in order for the future, how the timeline needs to balance itself out. And I'm kind of sounding like Wesley Crusher, the Traveler, right now. Something needs to happen, right?
Right.
I mean, he explained all of this in Prodigy season 2. If this happens, he was like, you all have to be together. If you're not together, it's going to crash and burn and things are going to happen. And I don't know how to stop it. And that was kind of what happened here. He had to make that decision because he knew if I try to save her, all hell's going to break loose. And that was kind of the decision that every single person in all of these episodes and all of the movies, they needed the whales, for goodness sakes, to save. Like they had to go back in time in order to save the future. The whales were to save the future.
Right.
So I always enjoyed that when it's that topic of everything you do impacts who you are later on. Everything you go through impacts you. Everything you do, say, what happens to you changes you into the person who you are. We wouldn't have those moments without that. Kirk had to let her die in order to save Bones, in order to save the future. But he had to go through it and make that decision and be able to carry that burden and know that her vision of the future and how she wanted that unification, her death was able to create that. Mm-hmm. So her dream did end up coming alive. And for Kirk, I think it was like, I'm going to go back knowing to keep her memory alive that her death was for a reason.
Yeah. And I like at the end of the episode too, because like I don't know if this is what you're headed for, but this is where I'm going with it. So I like that Kirk, because when I see Kirk, I think of him as somebody who acts on a gut reaction. He acts on how he feels in the moment. And we see that in the Kelvin timeline movies. We see that in a lot of the original series stuff where Kirk has an emotion and he goes with it. And his original emotion is that he was going to go save her until Spock yells out at him to kind of get his attention and stop him from doing that. And the most realistic part of this whole thing is when Bones looks at him and goes, "Do you know what you've just done?" And Spock responds with, "He knows, Doctor. He knows."
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the gravity of the way that Leonard Nimoy says it there as Spock, the way that Spock says it, just he knows, Doctor. He knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very telling about the emotional aspect of that episode, the weight of it right then.
Absolutely. And I'm actually going to be bringing up 2 more episodes of TNG that fit really well with what you just said. First, Joel says, "Yep, that's the one." So yesteryear is the one with his pet, and I don't know if I'm ready. And then Dave, hello. He says, "Hey, all, out with a fellow Trekkie friend for his birthday. So happy birthday!" Showing him this channel. Well, I hope this makes your birthday happy. Watching us talk about a very depressing episode. And then also on Instagram, we got a couple people. We got David Jones and Rashid, and I think that's Darth Emeris. All right. Over on
Hello,
Instagram.
Instagramians.
Instagramians, hello.
Hello.
I am going to talk about yesterday's Enterprise and Time's Arrow real fast to just kind of,
Okay.
because this works well with what you had just said. So Time's Arrow was a 2-parter where they actually found Data's head 500 years in the past. And everyone was all upset because they're like, how did Data get there? How did his head get there? All that stuff. Well, he ended up falling back in 1898, which what they were afraid of. And they were trying to get him back, and he ended up losing his head. And there was this kind of full circle moment of bringing him back. Now, he survived, which is great. But it was one of those things where he's all like, I have to let this happen. You know, because everyone was all like, no, we got to stop it from happening. He's like, no. He's like, it already happened. You found my head. It already happened. Like, there's something that needs to continue. So Data, you know, being like Spock, you have to let nature take its course. The thing about yesterday's Enterprise is that one little thing. So I guess the Enterprise C had saved Klingons from a Romulan attack 22 years prior to the Enterprise D of where this episode was taking place. And because of that save, the Klingons then created a truce with the Federation. Of course, there has to be some anomaly happening. The Enterprise C went through a time portal or wormhole, whatever it was called. And because they didn't get to save, all of a sudden the future just changed. And all of a sudden you literally see the Enterprise D, like you see them normally, turn into a warship. And they're all dressed differently. And there's no Worf behind them. It's Tasha Yar. So she didn't even end up dying. They never had Klingons. They were still at war with the Klingons. Like this whole thing, all because of this one moment. So this is that Edith moment, right?
Right.
That if they didn't have this, but it was Tasha and Guinan, because she knows like something's off. She had to make the decision of like, I'm not supposed to be here. I need to go with them and have a meaningful death than what I was supposed to have. So she made the sacrifice, helped them go back and put the timeline back. But there was consequences. Which I'm not going to go into because I don't want to spoil anymore. But there were consequences to this decision. So I love how that intertwines the way that it does. And it does give those options of morality. In this case, Tasha had to make the difficult decision.
Sure.
And Picard had to agree. You know, at first he didn't. He was like, no, you're not going over there. She's like, I have to. And same with Guinan. She's like, you don't have a choice. She was kind of like Data he's like, my head's already there. It already happened. We have to let nature take its course. Otherwise, it's going to be a bigger disaster. You know, even though humanity was going to be destroyed because of what they did and all good things, Picard had to save humanity and he had to take the risk that history is going to change and hopefully it's for the better. And in a lot of cases, it wasn't.
Right.
You know, because as much as Troy survived, they ended up losing a son and Data had died and all this stuff had happened. Like still tragedy followed them no matter where they went. Over on your Facebook, Devin says, "Oh my gosh, I love you, Tim. I miss you." You
Hi,
have
Devin.
plans.
They
Joel
like
says,
me.
"Okay,
They really like me.
they really like me." Joel's off to go prep for tonight's text trek, so follow them right after this. They're going to be starting here in about 25 minutes.
Cool,
So
cool.
bye, Joel. Have fun. And Kevin says, talk about long-term storytelling at its best. And it's true because they're literally taking one thing and they're literally doing different versions of it.
That is cool.
It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. I've even seen it like on Charmed.
Mm-hmm.
They've done it on Xena. I'm a huge Xena fan. And they've done that so well that one little thing just changes all of it. Do you know of any other like movie or TV show that also kind of did this story of changing?
Well, Back to the Future did it.
Well, back true.
No, in all seriousness,
Yeah.
Probably one of the best versions of storytelling for time travel movie is Back to the Future, because he goes back and Biff finds the gambling guide, and because Marty screwed up and he didn't listen to Doc, and so Biff finds it and he creates what looks to be 2025 America, and it's just it's all the things that change because of one decision that's made here and how that ripples forward in the future and the changes that are made there. I think Days of Future Past for X-Men also does a pretty good job of that too, talking about the changes and the things that need to be done to prevent a certain timeline from happening in the future, the way that you see the apocalyptic way that movie starts, post-apocalyptic way that movie starts. So yeah.
Well, they also had to fix X-Men 3 because
yeah.
We're not going to talk about that one.
We don't talk about X-Men 3. It makes us sad.
Not a happy camper. You know what pissed me off? I'm actually going to vent here for a second.
Please.
What pissed me off is that it was Wolverine that stopped the Phoenix. I was pissed. I was like, in the animated series and all that, it was Rogue. It was not Wolverine. They had to do the whole love story. No, anyways.
Yeah, they did it for the emotional attachment of Wolverine having to kill somebody he had a crush on. But Deadpool did a little bit of that too. Went back and fixed some bad decisions with the Wolverine origin story, going back and killing the other version of Deadpool.
Yeah.
Bad decision. Bam, bam, bam.
He wanted that dog.
Oh, yeah.
Jason says, ha ha ha, Tim, love it. I'm not really sure what he was.
I'm thinking that came up right after my 2025 America comment. So.
Oh yes. Okay, perfect. And then he also says, I've been told the movie Primer is very good for time travel. I've seen it 3 times and have no clue what happened. We love that. Absolutely love that. The Orville did do a time travel episode quite well. And that's from Kevin. So awesome. I need to get into the Orville. I know it's...
I've had a hard time. I'm having a hard time getting... Now, I've heard from other people, you got to get through the first few episodes of season 1, and then it becomes more Star Trek. I just felt like it was, Family Guy in space. I was having a really hard time with it the first few episodes. So...
That's kind of what it is, though.
Yeah, but I understand that. But on other interviews and things that I've seen with Seth MacFarlane, he wanted people to take it seriously because it was like an open letter to Trek, a love letter from him, because he wanted to be involved in Trek so badly, and couldn't get his shot, so he went and made his own Trek. And then the first few episodes were, very Seth MacFarlane, very 1,000 Ways to Die in the West, very Family Guy and things like that, and Ted, which is all fine. That's very much his brand. It just
wasn't Trek.
I don't know. I just had a hard time with it for the first couple episodes, but I hear it gets much better, and I need to give it another try.
Yeah, I do hear that it does get better in later seasons. I just realized I forgot to change my icon. So you're a special interview today.
Sweet.
You are my interview, and we're talking about the original series. There it is.
Special interview.
It's supposed to be a special interview. I have
a
little
live
icons that
special
I
interview.
shade. It's a live one. We'll finish the rest of it later. It's totally fine. Jason did say, I have heard Orville finds its footage. The first
I
few
think he means
episodes.
footing.
Okay, that was all. All right. The first few episodes are both. I love Seth, but I had a hard time with it too. But I've been told the same, that it gets better. Yeah. Yeah. So I think, like I said, the one thing that Trek does do well is really bring out, like Kevin had said, the morality of the story when it comes to this. It's not just pew pews and fights and all that stuff.
Right.
There is a reason behind it. And when someone has to make that horrible decision, or even about themselves, like Tasha did, it really just makes you think about your own yourself, in a sense of like, if I had done things a little differently, where would I be? Right. But then you also have to realize you're where you're supposed to be. Things happen for a reason. And I think that's just a very good reminder. Do you have any final thoughts about this whole time travel and TOS before I get into the tricorder rating?
Sure. So time travel is actually one of my favorite sci-fi tropes. I like a good sci-fi episode. I like a good not sci-fi episode, but time travel episode. Oh, I like sci-fi episodes too, but I like a good time travel episode. I like a good time travel movie. But I think one of the things I like most about this, and I really enjoyed this episode quite a lot, is that, like it was mentioned earlier, I think Kevin mentioned it from the Gentle Dork, is that it doesn't try and bog itself down in the science. It just goes for the story.
Yeah.
And I think the best versions of time travel are just that, where they just get into the story, they have fun with the story, or they make you pay attention to the seriousness, the morality of the story. But either way, it's not just, we have to do this to avoid this ripple, to avoid that ripple, to do this thing, to do that thing. It's just get in it and enjoy the story. And I think that's one of the best things about this episode, is that you don't have to know or understand any of the prepositions or hypotheses around time travel. You can just sit down and enjoy the episode. And you really don't even have to understand the characters very well that are at play in this episode, because who they are is not as important as the story itself.
Absolutely. I was actually just thinking that Strange New Worlds doing, I want to say it was A Quality of Mercy, where the future Pike came to the past in order to tell Pike just that things have to play its course, because he was gonna try and stop him not getting burned. And
things have to happen the way they do.
Things have to happen the way that they do. And he was like, you need to let this happen. You need to stop worrying about it, because he was so obsessed with it, right?
Right.
Being very careful, being too not a captain in a sense.
Right.
And so
his whole personality changes after that, and he goes back to being Pike.
Yeah, exactly. And then even tomorrow, La'an has to make the decision of saving a very young Khan. And it's it's just one of those things where she's all like, I could kill this child and so much would not happen. The wars, all of it. But then where would she be? Where would other people be? What would happen?
Right.
Would there be certain things like she made the decision to leave him there. So very, very good, heart-wrenching episodes in a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like when you really
honestly, I think Trek as a universe, in my opinion, handles time travel probably the best out of a lot of the sci-fi universes. I think they handle it the best. I think that they have a different perspective on it, because I think they look at the humanity and the morality of the story, not just how cool would it be to go back and gamble a bunch of money and have a better future. you know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So with all that being said, let's go into our tricorder rating.
By tricorder.
All right, I got 4 votes again. Yay! So the voting was 5 Guardians being the best, 4 Time Distortions, 3 Homeless Shelters, or 1 or 2 shots of Cordrazine. And 3 people voted 5 Guardians. They're like, top-notch episode. But I got 1 person there who was like, no, this is a 1 to 2. That's how many shots you're going to get and go mentally insane. So clearly they're not a fan, but which is fine. But I think for me, I would probably give it a 5. Just because for being a TOS episode, it hits the marks very well. Where would you put this in the rating?
Somewhere between a 4 and a 5, because I think that for being original series, and being the type of story it is, I think it handles everything really well. And I think if we're gonna talk about just being look at it from just a time travel episode, it's probably closer to a 4. If we're looking at it from the story style and the quality of the story and the way that it makes you question your own morality, then it's a 5.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because the time travel part is like, all right, they're jumping through a hole.
The time travel part was a little weak, but that was also kind of the benefit of it, was that it was just, hey, we're not getting weighed down with the time travel, we're just having fun.
Yeah, like Kevin said,
Just
like
getting to the story.
didn't have all the science, they just got straight to the story.
Exactly.
I agree. Now, I started this new thing called the Sick Bay Spinner. Okay, and I stole this idea over at Captain's Quadrant, where they spin a wheel to tell me what my next episode is. However, Tim, you are not getting the benefit of the Sick Bay Spinner because I have special episodes in April. I'm so sorry. So, no Sick Bay Spinner for these next 2 episodes. And of course, I also have some interviews in April. So that has all been ready to go. But before I actually go into my redhead alert, we have one more comment from Kevin. As I say, it's a 4.5, but it's one of the better episodes. Yes, I agree. For something that starts, this really is the one episode that just starts the whole time travel shenanigans of Trek, right? This was the pinnacle episode. But yeah, let's just go ahead and jump into my redhead alert. And like I said, no Sick Bay Spinner because I have a special episode next time as I sit down with Cameron Harrison from Green Shirt Podcast in Newbie's Trek Through the Next Generation. Cameron has officially finished The Next Generation after 7 years. I am going to talk about his journey and what he has learned through this whole process. So this episode is live on April 4th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And of course, Trek Talks is almost here, and it's going to be happening on April 5th, which is First Contact Day. And it is to benefit the Hollywood Food Coalition. If you go to trektalks.net, you can find out all the information and all the wonderful guests that they're going to have. Follow them on all the socials at @Trek_Talks, or actually, not even or, you better follow them on YouTube at Trek Talks Telethon. And just like this design and all my designs right now on my TeePublic store, all the proceeds will be donated to Trek Talks up to April 5th. And my episode with John Billingsley is finally here. It is happening next Friday. We discuss the upcoming Trek Talks, which is on April 5th. For more information, please follow them on the socials at Trek Talks. And of course, subscribe to their YouTube. It was very, very fun talking with John. We had rambled off here and there, but we also got deep into the seriousness. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm really happy to share it with you guys. And last but not least, it is my Patreon shout outs, and they go to Chuck and Leslie, who are my Commander patrons, and Engineer Mark, who is my Admiral patron. If you would like to support the podcast and enjoy exclusive extra content, just head over to patreon.com/Crusher Convo, and you can sign up for as low as $3 a month.
Woo-woo.
Hey, we did it. So, Tim, thank you for joining me. Please tell the listeners where they can find you.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm Tim. I'm the host of the FSF podcast. We are your nerdy location for sci-fi, pop culture interviews. We talk to writers, actors, directors, all that fun stuff. You can find us here on YouTube, of course, at FSF Podcast, on all social media and all your audio podcast providers. I also just want to, if you don't mind, I want to throw out one little quick plug because, you know, plugs are fun. So Trek Talks is April 5th. Jessi has her interview with John Billingsley getting ready to post here shortly. On April 3rd, 2 nights before Trek Talks, John Billingsley and Bonnie Gordon, the voice of the protostar from Star Trek Prodigy, will be joining us live on air on FSF Podcast. You can find us here on YouTube. You'll be able to ask them Trek questions. We're going to talk about Trek Talks, why it's important, each of their series, things along those lines. So we're going to have some fun with John and Bonnie on April 3rd at 8 p.m. So it's one of our regular live show nights, but it's a little bit later because they're West Coast and we're kind of giving them the benefit of the late start. So, but yeah, so April 3rd, 8 p.m. on FSF Podcast. Come talk with John Billingsley and Bonnie Gordon. You can ignore the rest of us, but you might want to talk with them. So
I will ignore you and only talk to John and Bonnie.
I'm okay with that.
That's fine.
I'm okay with that.
Real fast, Chuck made it! Yay!
Hello, Chuck.
One of my patrons. Chuck is awesome. He loves Trek and he supports everybody.
Awesome.
So I'm happy you are here. But anyways, guys, I am starting to feel the cold medicine wearing off. Tim is exhausted. We've all had a rough week, but we made it.
I'm surprised you've made it 52 minutes on cold medicine. Let's be honest with you. So,
and a cough drop. I don't know if you saw me pop one earlier.
No, I did. Is that what you put in your mouth earlier? Was that a cough drop?
Yeah.
Oh, Chuck says hi in the comments. Hi, Chuck. Nice to meet you, buddy.
Hi, Tim.
Yeah. Oh, and hey, guys, we talked about 3 Geeks podcast earlier. Please go check them out. They're a lot of fun. I love Jason and the guys. I work very closely with them, a lot of different things. They're very good. And then check out the Gentle Dork too, Kevin there. Real good guy and does some real cool stuff in the community. And they're both great people to follow. Neither one of them are your I hate you for liking that gatekeeper type of people. They're just a lot of fun. So
nice. We do love that, actually. Yeah.
Exactly. So
we're just here to have, what is it, Tim? Aggressive positivity. Is that what you call it?
Yep. I believe strongly in aggressive positivity. Let's let people like what they like. Let people love what they love. You don't have to agree with them 100%. You don't have to agree with them at all, actually. But that's, if they like something that you don't in your fandom, well, you know what? They got to your fandom. They found it. Let them be there and enjoy it.
Let them be. Yes.
Let them be a fan. You don't got to be a jerk.
Don't mean to quote the Beatles, but let them be.
Let it be. Let it be.
Let it be. But anyways, guys, thank you so much. Thank you for everyone from joining us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Where else Tim put us? I don't know. Live long and
yeah.
Oh yeah. Live long and prosper, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Don't forget, you can listen to all the audio versions of Crusher Convo on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can support the podcast by buying merch on TeePublic, buy me a coffee by scanning that QR code, or becoming a Patreon member for as low as $3 a month. But the best way to support Crusher Convo is to like and subscribe here on YouTube. You can also find me on BlueSky, Instagram, Threads, or TikTok, so please follow me there. And of course, all this information can be found on crusherconvo.com.
Crusher out.